So here we have our example of the Wardley map, and I was thinking, well, what are the goals here? We're showing the most important thing on a Wardley map is the left to right. How mature is something, whether we build it or not. These dots are components that we want to build or areas of concern.
I don't think you're sharing your screen yet, Adam.
I'm not
Oh,
seeing.
am I not? Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. There it is. Thanks, Rick.
No problem.
How are you, Rick?
I'm doing all right.
Good, good. So thanks for joining. Yeah, so I was thinking, why can't we address some of these important things, such as now I'm going to give the example of Amazon as to how they could have used how they could have used a Wardley map or an event model to do the same thing. So, and one of the things that we were talking about last week is kind of organizing these horizontal swim lanes for being highly technical to being more business or visible to humans at the top, more events that basically say someone walked in the door, not even technical things. And that's why this part jumping around all over the place. That was explained down here in terms of, here's that nice diagram we had down here, and Rick helped with this last time, where we had this arrangement of, actual events entered the bank, and then the actual information of what's going on, and adding some products, doing some more stuff. But then we could also dive quite deeply into technical stuff if we needed to, such as concurrency for streams. If you're selling tickets and that's part of your business, you want to dive into that complexity. That's really talking about how the information in the above swim lanes is going to be really manipulated for transactional boundaries and other things, which may be of interest to you. So that's cool. But there's an even better range for these swim lanes. And as you can probably guess, it's to do with the Wardley map left and right. The Wardley map left and right is something that shows you how much of a commodity something is. So there's Genesis, which is a total experiment. We're trying to maybe write a new encryption algorithm or something totally brand new. We might be inventing who knows, a new power source of energy or something. Custom build is things that are our own custom stuff that we just can't really find anywhere. We have to build it ourselves. And then product or rental, that's where we integrate with a CRM because we don't want to do our own CRM or things like that. And then commodity and utility are things such as email and all sorts of other things that we make use of. And for example, if we had something like status update to clients, we could probably have, something like email being attached here, and that would be in the commodity column. So what's interesting with this is that it's really about talking about the landscape, the competitive landscape. You don't want to be writing something like a custom built thing, because these are more expensive the more you go to the left, right? Email's free. Everyone can get an email account, right? But doing some experiment where no one's ever done it before, there's no example code out there for your developers to copy or emulate. That's going to be really expensive. Custom built is less expensive, but still expensive. You're writing all your automation from scratch. Product is less expensive because you're really just maybe writing some integration pieces, but the product's actually working or a service is working. And then emails and email and other commodities are really ubiquitous. You have plugins, there's no integration. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone, how the scale of expensiveness from Genesis through custom build product and commodity is evaluated here. And the idea is that this is kind of like the war map. And Simon Wardley said that you really need this kind of picture of the landscape of how you're going to compete in the marketplace by understanding that if your competitor is going to be using an off-the-shelf product for, let's say, time validation, and you're going to be building it, you're going to be incurring a greater cost. So there better be some extra things besides time validation and good reasons why you're building your own to do that. But there's this difference. And sometimes if you look at Amazon, they say, hey, we're selling books, but all of our underneath commodities that we have are really some things that we could resell. So that's how Amazon Web Services came about, because even though Amazon was just selling books, they said, hey, look at all this awesome stuff our guys built. And so we're going to move some of our custom infrastructure to be an actual product and move the dot here, and we can actually sell it. So there's that maturity of products and solutions that makes things move from left to right. What is this diagram not good at showing? It's not good at showing when these migrations happen. The timeline is missing. Guess what event modeling is good at? That canvas is good for showing the timeline. So can we get the same goals on an event model answered that Wardley maps do? And the answer is yes. And we can do better, actually. What we have on an event model is really 3 layers of thought. This is the middle layer of what our information system is going to be. But if we zoom out on the timeline and on the scope, we can see that we can adopt this. Oh my, there's something that moved here. Okay. So what we have here is a similar event model that, let me just copy one of these guys and get some alternate text in there. And we're going to use the example of web hosting. Okay. And we can show that it becomes more of a commodity with time. And so, okay, we have this line is not what I want in terms of style. Come on, where's my pop-up? There it is. So you want this, we want this to be thinner, maybe dotted line. And so guess what our grouping swim lanes are going to be in this zoomed out version? They're going to be Genesis. Come on, not enough caffeine. Custom. And here we have product. And here we have commodity. So if we look at the translations between these lanes, we can put some okay, so at some point web hosting has become more of a commodity. But what years do you think should go here? Go ahead, you can unmute your mics and vote for what you think the timeline is for this here. When was web hosting something that was novel. No one else was doing it.
The early 90s?
Yeah, probably ARPA time, right? 91, 92, just before the internet started. So let's add a timeline here. And then remember what the Wordly map had at the top? It had user needs. Right, in their time tracking example, predict cash flow status, update of client, charge, correct tax, pay consultants, bill clients. So if we think about web hosting, was it always the same? There's more and more capabilities that it supported, right? Because as we got web hosting, we started to experiment with what? Online payment, right? So let's go back up to our concerns. So I'm jumping all over the place because my mind was spinning with this over the last week. It's quite awesome. And in fact, we don't need this. What's better than that little dot for user need? A nice actual form that shows what someone is doing. Which is, what are they doing here? Oh, come on. What are they doing here? They're getting information, research about something. Encyclopedia page / journal, professional journal. Let's just say that. And what's the need that's happening here? Purchase Christmas. What were the first things that were purchased online? Anyone remember? There wasn't many things that got shipping, or was it? Was it durable goods?
Books.
Books, yes.
Was it books, really?
Maybe not the first, but amongst
Not
the first.
thing.
Not the first. So I just want to see the genesis part, right, of what was online payment used for. But because it's, I think once books were happening, we kind of, we might have had online payment become custom and
The jaded person would say that the first thing that all technology is used for is porn.
so online credits. Let's just make it safe, family safe for content. Thanks, Rick. And so what year was that? What year was the genesis for that? Was that like 97? My memory is so bad about those years as to when we could actually start buying things. Remember, people said, "Don't buy anything; you'll lose your money and you'll get scammed, and your Visa account your Visa will be charged to the yin yang, and you'll get a bad credit rating because you're using your Visa online." Who remembers those days of like, "Oh, I better get a special card for online purchases," right? So what year has online payments become ubiquitous? At some point we're here, right? And I don't know if I have these in the right order, but whatever. At some point, web hosting and online payments finally became ubiquitous. Maybe .com era, end of .com era, it was pretty much done deal.
I think it's fair to say online payments trailed web hosting.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to show in terms of maturity, right? From being a fresh idea to, being something that's ubiquitous. So I think I'll say that around the year 2000, it became a commodity where you had all a bunch of, you know, clearing houses and payments processors. So it goes up here.
Sure.
Okay. So when we talk about, let's say, you know, something like Bitcoin, we can say that there was some Genesis stuff. So we can say blockchain ideas happened with e-gold or something in the 90s. Digital currency. I think e-gold happened somewhere around here, but then things didn't actually become custom until we got into 2008, right? That was the time that it all started. So is this helpful to see within the context of time where we are? And if we map whatever we're interested in, such as in this case, our payment system, where some of these things may be painted here. More importantly, we have relationships between these things that all of a sudden are easier because the things they depend on became more available. So the relationships we can also show, but we can also show the value chain of where the user needs with specific examples are shown. Ah, shoot, I forgot the type. That and that and that. And then just delete these guys and go back to our regular arrows. So this goes to here, this supports that, and this gives you the ability to do that, and this also gives you the ability to do that. Okay. And if we zoom into today, so I'm just going to shrink this a little bit, it's a little too wide, and sort of stack them, as long as it's got that nice way of, in fact, it's probably better to have them this way. I think they'll cascade better if they're in this way. And then we have 2000, this became ubiquitous. 2008, digital currency made the drop into custom where people could actually do it. And then we started to have products around the hype of 2017. Right, 2017. 17. And then at some point, you know, the great Bitcoin's going to take over the world. And our fiat stuff is going to be looked at as barbaric ways of doing things. We can look at this as a 2030, my prediction, crystal ball, thank you. So we can see where digital currency bubbled down. But what's interesting right now is for the place that it gives us for what we would do with a Wordly map. We now have time-like context, much better way to show the crossing of these different states of the areas that we compete in. So would this be an interesting way to show the user needs, such as I'm shopping at Walmart. Oops, what the heck. Walmart checkout screen. And I have an option, use Bitcoin to pay. And I have, this means it's made big time, right? And I have my little address here that I can paste, or a little QR code. This is the goal, right? How am I going to make that happen for my user need? I currently don't have digital currency as a commodity. I want to make this happen. I'm going to do it by providing plugins for large corporations to be able to plug into such schemes. So instead of doing it in this way, where I have a bunch of arbitrary dots up here, I can now show the setup of other things that I may already have as something that is done in a regular way. So if I copy this and I go to, I don't know, mydigitalwallet.com or something. Transfer. Transfer using Lightning Network. No, maybe it'll do it backwards. Transfer using Bitcoin. And here we can use Lightning Network. So hopefully that gives us something better than little circles up here to say what we're going to provide as just a sentence. But we can start to zoom in. And the idea is that once you have your competitive landscape painted out and you know exactly where things have flowed down to in terms of maturing to be a commodity, now you can zoom in on this area. And the level below brings you to, oops, I actually don't want that. Brings you to your actual system that you're doing. So if you remember, we used ONote to do that kind of zooming around, and the thoughts are that we could shrink and expand swim lanes. Well, these could really be a rearrangement of, if you zoom out too far, you're in the executive view. And your capabilities and services end up getting put into an order of level of commodity. In other words, at a glance, what you're talking about is, let's just copy this, and this is going to be our own service here for, and it's going to be Genesis because we haven't done this yet, and it's going to be enterprise blockchain integration. And that's what we're going to be, that's what's going to provide this service. Come on. Not what I wanted. I think this needs to be sent to the back. Sent it back there. Now I think this will work. Yep. So as we expand on what these things are in terms of other components, we certainly can have the traditional stuff that we would have, because obviously this is going to require integration with verified emails. So we can show that this sends stuff off and uses that. However, when you zoom in from this executive view, it expands into what we can actually see. But the minute you zoom further out here from this point, you get brought back into this. And so one of the criticisms of value stream mapping and Wordly maps is that the decisions that are made in this fashion in a boardroom are based on a lot of assumptions without having any real proof as to whether it will work or whether it's a good idea or whether it's based in fact. Now, the fact that we have connections from, you know, certain things to our real system as we zoom in, and this zoom level explodes into the reality of what we're developing, the connection is still there. So if I claim that I can make an integration and pay Walmart and take money out of my personal account and use a digital currency to do so, then we can say that either I have or I don't have enough information, or there's a reason for this to be on the roadmap or there isn't. And again, the criticism was from these types of, you know, it just stays at the strategic level, it does not play at the implementation level, is that it shields people from taking responsibility for the decision that, you know, we should have a custom time validation piece, and that we did this and we thought that it wasn't going to be too much of a cost. That little point needs to be expressed directly here for its actual size and cost. And so I think the link between the C-level people, the people in and around the boardroom table making decisions once or whenever every quarter, they need to be held accountable for what their decisions mean, right? And so if we look at this as being the 2 years here, we need to know that the roadmap for what we're going to be doing currently is not making assumptions where we're painting something as being, you know, too, you know, not expensive or easy to implement, and all these kind of hand wavy kind of assumptions, and, you know, they say all the right words, all the right buzzwords are used, and everyone around the boardroom table that wants to please the CEO is clapping like a seal that that's a great idea. Well, no, I think we need this chain of responsibility to be and connectedness to be actually realized, and say, oh, who said this registration piece is supposed to be custom? This is taking up so much time and we could have had something off the shelf. Who made that decision? Should go reverse and say, well, this was our roadmap meeting at the executives meeting, right? That part of the executives meeting, this is the person that did it. Full accountability and traceability for all decisions as to what it ended up being and costing, and why we didn't buy something versus developing it. And so